This may sound crazy, but I often will say that the martyrs have it easy, or at least easier than those they leave behind. And think about it. See, the martyr suffers for a moment, but then he goes on to a new life. He's living life like he never had before. He opens his eyes in heaven, he's with the Father. But who is left behind? The family is left behind, and they are heartbroken, they're terrified, and they're usually living in the same place around the same people that killed their loved one. That is a rough life. Let me give you a real life case. This is Rami and Pauline. They lived in the Gaza Strip. And Rami ran a Christian bookstore. So the Gaza Strip, as you probably know, is a Muslim area. They were in a fundamentalist Muslim area. And they're running a Christian bookshop. And you can imagine they are not exactly making a lot of money. They're barely getting by, but they were really called to this mission. They had been rescued from Christ and they wanted to share that. And they wanted to see others come to Christ. Well, not everyone felt that way. And one day Rami was closing up shop and he comes out and a car comes screeching up. Some guys get it out. They grab him and kidnap him and stick him in the car. And they have him call Pauline. And so he calls her and he says, honey, I'm coming home, but I'm running late. I'm going to be a little while. And then those were the last words that Pauline ever heard from Rami. And we don't know all the details, but he was killed by radical Islamists, again, who didn't like the fact that he was running a Christian bookstore in the Gaza Strip. That was the beginning of a very long and hard journey for Pauline. You know, she was moved out after a while to Israel. She was moved out of the Gaza Strip and into Israel, which is a safe area, a wealthy area. But honestly, that made it all the harder for her because she was even more alienated, more cut off. She didn't have the friends and family around her that she had before. And she's now in a wealthy country. And so the burden on her is, the financial burden on her is intense. And Rami was always the breadwinner. And not only that, but her son has a learning disability. Everything was crashing around her. And honestly, what she said was she felt like she was suffocating. And that makes sense, right? And then here comes well-meaning believers around her and they said, you really need to forgive those who killed Rami, because she was struggling. And she'll be honest, she said, I hated the people who did this to him. And so she was full of bitterness, and these Christians would come around her and say, you're a child of God, you need to forgive. And that didn't exactly help her. That made her all the more angry and all the more bitter, and it just kept stirring inside her. And this went on until she said, the Lord started to show me that what had happened to Rami was God's will. She said, I saw it so clearly. This was his race. This was the course of his life. And it was all by design. And that's when God started to do something. And she said to God, she said, Father, I want to forgive these people. She couldn't do it in the human. But that's when he did a magnificent work in her life. He washed over my heart with forgiveness and love. She forgave and she loved the people who had killed her husband and had ruined her life, frankly. And if that's not from God, what is? She said, look, I became a totally new person, a positive person, full of forgiveness. And she said, the Lord just started to change me. And then it just went faster and faster until the point that she started thanking him for the cross that he had given her to carry. And think about what that cross was. That means a lot. And so this is, for me, this is the most amazing thing. And she said, I began to feel that my yoke that I was carrying was light. And that's just the Lord. When I think about Pauline's case, I feel like the Lord wanted to make her into a human billboard that was basically kind of like a walking advertisement for him, because where else do you see this? This human being whose life was destroyed, and yet she's full of love and forgiveness for those who did it to her. And so she has this otherworldly peace and this love. This is not from this world, so everyone who sees it knows that this is from God, and they are drawn to him through her and through what happened to her. You know, all of us are carrying wounds and scars from our own journey. You know, our typical response to being deeply wounded is that we put our heart into a fortress and we close ourselves in. We say, never again. I won't be hurt like that ever again. And the only thing, though, is that we find out that what we thought was a fortress is actually a tomb. And the only thing I'd say to you is that if you find yourself in this spot, what the Lord did with Pauline, he can do with you. That fortress that she had built around her heart, made with stones of fear and rage and anger and hurt, all those stones he turned to dust. With a single breath, he blew them away. And the same can be done for you. God's breath is always there, ready to roll away that stone and to call you back to life. Come, Holy Spirit.